Unbelievable twist. Millionaire CEO's son exposes hidden truth by choosing MAID over Socialites. Alex Caldwell felt the weight of his lineage pressing down on his shoulders as he adjusted his tailored suit in the mirror. His reflection stared back at him. Encapsulating the expectations of the world, he occupied the elite of New York who thrived on opulence and prestige. Yet, beneath the surface of designer labels and polished floors, a tempest brewed in his heart. A promise hung over him like a noose, crafted by his father's ambitions and gilded social status. It was not the life he wanted. Looking out over the sprawling estate, Alex swallowed the knot in his throat. His father had made it clear. An arranged marriage to Charlotte Prescott, a socially prominent heiress, was not just beneficial but necessary for their family's legacy. Family honor, business alliances, and market advantages loomed large in the old man's mind. But what about Alex's choices? Instead of swirling champagne flutes and elegant soirees, his heart longed for something real, something authentic. And that something was hidden in the shadows of the estate's elegant kitchen. Alex often found solace in the scents wafting from the kitchen as Maria, the family maid, poured herself into the evening's meal preparations. One night, as he sat with her, the sound of sizzling garlic and thyme wrapped around them like a comforting embrace. Their conversations were soft, yet intimate, punctuated by tales of hardship and resilience. Maria's sacrifices for her family resonated with him. With vibrant snapshots of her life, she painted a world outside his gilded cage, illuminating the stark contrast between their experiences. There was a beauty in her struggles, a rawness that called to him, drawing him closer with each shared anecdote. Yet, as anticipation electrified the air with the impending announcement of his engagement, Alex felt the walls closing in. He questioned everything. Was he supposed to play the role of dutiful son, shackled by privilege and expectations? Or could he dare to choose the path of his true desires, shunning the world that had established his identity? With every passing moment, his indecision contorted into desperation. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each day leading to the gala, the pressure suffocated him. Each dress fitting for Charlotte, every conversation about margin increases, and each laugh shared with guests at extravagant parties twisted the knife deeper. He stood at a crossroads, torn between allegiance to a legacy steeped in entitlement and an undeniable connection with Maria, trapped in silence far from the spotlight. Could his love transcend the chains of class? As the night of the gala approached, years of unyielding expectations collided with an urge to disrupt the cycle. The ambience of the grand ballroom pulsed with an undercurrent of superficiality, shiny jewels adorning necks that cloistered shallow hearts. It was there, amidst the laughter and clinking glasses, that Alex felt the moment teetering on the edge. Caught between the glimmering facade and the heartbreaking reality of Maria's struggles awaiting acknowledgement, the weight of his choice bore heavily. As he caught a glimpse of Maria, her eyes shimmering with a mix of fear and unwavering hope, the sea of elite whispers faded into a cacophony of doubt. The mic loomed before him, a bridge between two worlds. Inhaling deeply, Alex faced the crowd, every heartbeat a tumultuous question emerging within him. Would he follow the gilded path laid out before him, or would he seize this moment to reveal the hidden truths buried beneath the glittering surface? The silence hung thick, and a part of him yearned to leap. The tension peaked as he grasped the microphone, words dancing on the edge of his tongue, ready to shatter the unspoken divide. A profound stillness enveloped the ballroom as Alex clutched the microphone, every eye on him like a spotlight. The weight of silence intensified, urging him to speak, yet his mind raced in disarray. A million thoughts crashed against one another. The fear of disappointing his father, the dread of ostracism, and the exhilaration of possibility quickening his pulse. This wasn't simply a choice between two paths. It represented his entire existence teetering on a knife's edge. In that moment, the lavish surroundings faded as he stood at an intersection of identity and consequence, his reflection in the crystal chandeliers transforming into fleeting images of what could be freeing himself from the suffocation of high society. As memories flickered through his mind, the shared laughter with Maria brightened the dimness pressing against him. He envisioned the late-night conversations filled with dreams of a different life, the warmth of her laughter melting away the icy expectations of his father. The intimacy they had created felt like a silent rebellion against the arrogance of privilege surrounding him. In the swell of adrenaline, clarity began to replace confusion. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice broke through the silence, steadying itself against the tide of uncertainty. The words began to flow, spilling forth from a place of authenticity. "I stand before you not as the son of a CEO, groomed for an illustrious marriage, but as a man faced with a choice." Gasps erupted. A ripple of disbelief coursed through the crowd. Yet he pushed forward, emboldened by the reality of his truth. We often mistake lineage for identity. We see honors, wealth, and power, yet fail to see the importance of genuine connection. Each phrase reinforced his resolve as he caught glimpses of familiar faces, some morphed into masks of shock, others twisted into contempt. Then came an internal argument, cycling through his mind with ferocity. Was he really willing to sacrifice everything he had known? But the thought of Maria's steadfast spirit stoked the flame within him. He envisioned the joy of a simple life, devoid of pretense. "For too long, I have hidden behind my family's facade, paraded as an object of public admiration, while yearning for something, or someone, real." As murmurs swayed among the guests, he openly named Maria. The name echoed in disbelief. "I choose to love the woman who has shown me the beauty of resilience, who has inspired me to grow beyond a gilded cage." Shock morphed into a chaotic symphony of dissent, and Alex braced for the onslaught. Questions flooded his mind. How would his father react? What allies would he lose? But in that moment of clarity, he realized how much those concerns paled compared to the prospect of living an authentic life. Embracing this path would echo throughout his professional life, a rebirth of sorts. "From here on, I walk my own path," he asserted, a surge of defiance coursing through him. For the first time, he could feel the internal chains cracking, echoing with each powerful declaration. It was as if a dormant part of him had awoken, feeding off the uncertainty and conflict surrounding him. But as he poured forth his heart's truth, the lingering gaze of his father's eyes ignited a flicker of fear. Would he support Alex's decision, or rally the social elite to scorn it? The potential fallout tightened around him, an imbalance of freedom versus familial loyalty. As silence reclaimed the room, Alex took a step back. He hadn't just revealed a secret, but had pulled back the curtain on his existence. Yet that didn't shield him from the aftermath looming just beyond the threshold. Emblazoned with truth but unprepared for the battlefield that awaited him, he turned to the gathering, unsure of what would follow. A quiet determination settled within. He had begun a journey towards self-actualization, but the storm was only starting to gather. The reality hung heavy in the air. He had disrupted the status quo, and consequences would soon unfurl. What awaited him on this uncharted path, both personal and professional? The sound of the microphone dropping to the floor echoed like the ticking clock of his future. Alex had taken a leap. Now he had to brace for the landing. The aftermath of his declaration reverberated louder than Alex had anticipated. A sea of faces stared back at him, some appalled, others simmering with contempt. But each one was a test, a reflection of the choices he had made in that singular moment. As the ballroom buzzed with indistinguishable whispers, he felt an urgent pull toward the door, the need to escape the tension pressing against him. Yet, the gravity of what lay ahead anchored him in place. He could hear his father's voice cutting through the cacophony. "Alex!" It was a command laced with disbelief and irritation, and it spiraled through the crowd like wildfire. Alex turned slowly, the uncertainty flickering in his chest. How would he confront the man whose life had been built on expectations, on a vision of success that now felt entirely alien? "Meet me outside," his father demanded with a sharp glare, cutting through the noise as guests parted for the unfolding drama. As he stepped away from the crowd, each footfall resonated with both anticipation and dread. He was walking the line between the life he had known and the one he had just begun to claim. What would this confrontation reveal? Once outside, the cool night air hit him like a rush of clarity. The world felt expanded, possibilities unfurling like petals beneath a bright sun. Yet, he could still feel his father's presence looming like a heavy cloud. They met in the courtyard, a stark contrast to the opulence inside, wrapped in shadows and prolonged reflections. "Do you understand what you've done?" His father's voice was tight, his expression a mix of disbelief and anger simmering just beneath the surface. "You've thrown away everything we've built, the legacy, the connections. For what? A fleeting romance?" The words stung, each one a reminder of the life he was challenging. But rather than yielding, something fierce began to emerge within him. "It's not fleeting, father. It's real. I won't bury my soul to fit a mold you've created." The determination behind his voice surprised even himself. His father stepped closer, the space between them charged with palpable tension. "You think you can defy our way of life and succeed? You'll be cast out, Alex. Wealth doesn't just come from money. It's power, influence, power." Alex interrupted, the heat spilling forth with conviction. "I am more than an extension of your ambitions. I want to find my own influence, my own journey. I'm not ashamed of who I am or who I love." For a moment, silence draped across them, a fragile truce hanging in the air as both men wrestled with their truths. Alex could see the flicker of pain in his father's eyes. Was it disappointment or fear of losing his son's allegiance? But that fleeting connection was shattered by the weight of harsh realities. "Think carefully," his father's low voice warned, a caution steeped in years of conditioning. "You'll regret this path." As the threat settled, Alex felt a wave of clarity wash over him. The choices he made were not just a rebellion against his father. They were a quest for identity within himself. If he were to navigate his path successfully, he would need to rally his own support, build a community of like-minded individuals who saw value in authenticity. Returning inside, everything felt different. The weight of judgment lingered, but it was no longer a prisoner's burden. He took a deep breath and made his way to Maria. Before he could reach her, their eyes locked, and the gravity of unspoken words passed between them. But just as he opened his mouth to speak, an unexpected figure emerged. Tension rippled through the crowd as the media, a ravenous pack of vultures, descended upon him. Cameras flashed, eager to capture the fallout of his audacious declaration. Suddenly, his decision to confront his past was eclipsed by the pressing need to define his narrative, before others did it for him. "Alex!" someone shouted, sending another wave of electricity through the moment. He felt a surge of resolve course through him. This was it. The intersection of his personal and professional lives had just transformed into a powerful battleground. How he would navigate these revelations could redefine the course of everything he aspired to be. As the crowd closed in, and sharp questions pierced the air, he knew that the moment had come for him to not only tell his story, but to seize control over his destiny. The stakes were rising, and the pressure was palpable. Would he find the strength to articulate his truth amidst the commotion? What awaited him as the cameras turned their relentless gaze toward his future? As the cameras beckoned, Alex felt the pulse of the moment quickening, his heart thrumming against his chest. The assault of bright lights and pointed questions was disorienting, yet within the tumult, a singular thought crystallized. He was not merely a spectator in this narrative. He was the author, and it was time to reclaim his story. "Alex, how do you respond to your father's allegations of risking his legacy?" Someone shouted from the front, a young reporter with a sharp notepad ready to document every flinch. The question hung in the air, a gavel striking down on the chaotic courtroom of opinions. He breathed deeply, feeling the weight of the world and, more personally, his father's legacy on his shoulders. But he was ready to redefine what that legacy meant, not just for his father but for himself. Risking a legacy? He began, his voice steadying. My father's legacy is built on the notion of power and conformity. But I refuse to stand for a lineage that stifles who I am. The words flowed out, feral and free. Cameras flashed like stars falling from the night sky, illuminating truths he kept hidden behind closed doors for too long. Do you think he'll forgive this? Another reporter chimed in, eager to exploit any vulnerability. Alex met their eyes with a fierce determination. This isn't about forgiveness. It's about authenticity. It's about living a life true to oneself, even if that means challenging the very foundations on which we were raised. He could feel the shift, a wave of energy that vibrated in the space around him, rippling through the crowd. Are you saying you'd rather choose love over power? A voice inquired, laced with both skepticism and intrigue. Absolutely, he affirmed, passion igniting his words. Power can be seductive, but love is transformative. I refuse to conform to a life that doesn't resonate with me. There was no going back now. His declaration lay bare, raw, a challenge against the societal chains forged for him. The reporters were captivated. The questions now different, fueled by curiosity rather than derision. What Alex hadn't anticipated was the visibility this moment would bring. Faces shifted, expressions morphing from judgment to contemplation. The presence of Maria penetrated his thoughts, pushing him forward. Could she still believe in him when everything he said left a fissure in what had been his preconceived future? He scanned the crowd again, each face a reminder of the upbringing that had tried to box him into an enviable, but inauthentic, existence. Each glimmering camera lens was a reminder of the world he was stepping away from, yet a doorway into one where he could flourish. Suddenly, he spotted a figure he hadn't expected. His mother, standing by the periphery, a hesitant but keen observer. In her eyes was a glimmer of understanding, perhaps even support, an unexpected ally in a battle he thought he had to face alone. At that moment, the adrenaline coursed through him like electricity. He realized this was not just a confrontation with his father but a pivotal juncture in his evolution. Alex felt a sense of agency swell within him. The pressure was no longer suffocating, but liberating. Let us turn this narrative around, he told the throng, positioning himself not just as a son defying expectations but as an individual stepping into his own light. He was no longer merely a millionaire's son. He was a man who knew the price of freedom and clarity. As the last question met silence, the energy in the air shifted. With a deep inhale, he knew he needed to take the next step, craft a strategy that would solidify his growing independence while embracing the unfolding reality of his relationships. Yet, amidst the flickering lights and the weight of opinion, doubt began to crawl back, gnawing softly. What if his father wielded more power than he had anticipated? Had he truly spent all this effort to choose authenticity only to walk directly into isolation? The tension tangled within him as the night loomed, full of uncharted possibilities. Would he navigate the storm unleashed by his boldness, or would it consume him entirely? Each moment felt critical, and as he stepped away from the crowd for a moment of reprieve, he noticed his path ahead remained dense with mystery and challenge. New voices awaited not only from his father or the media, but from within himself. He had opened himself to the world, but now he would have to face the consequences. Would he stand firm against those who challenged him, or would the weight of past expectations drag him under? The truth clawed at the back of his mind as he stepped back into the crowd. The real battle had only just begun, and shadows of lingering doubts threatened to darken the vibrant light he worked so hard to claim. Each heartbeat was a reminder of Alex's precarious position, the tumult of public opinion swirling around him like a whirlwind. He maneuvered through the throng of reporters, away from curious eyes and probing cameras, seeking a sanctuary within the chaos. In a quiet corner, surrounded by half-empty coffee cups and echoing voices of dissent, he faced the reality of his situation. What had begun as a moment of defiance had quickly spiraled into a life-altering statement. The weight of his choice was palpable. It wasn't merely about his father's legacy. It was about creating a new narrative for himself, one that came with both hope and fear. He had poured his heart out in front of the world, Yet a haunting thought drilled deeper. His authenticity could cost him everything. Taking a seat on the edge of an old wooden bench, he closed his eyes to collect his thoughts, the grinding anxiety a buzzing reminder of the stakes involved. He felt unmoored, caught between the echo of adherence to familial expectations and the clarity of his newfound integrity. The shadows of doubt skittered across his mind, and it occurred to him, reforming his identity wouldn't simply hinge upon what others thought of him, but also on how firmly he could embrace his truth, solitary though it may feel. Alex, the voice pulled him from his reverie. He opened his eyes to find Maria, her expression a mix of concern and admiration. Instinctively, he braced himself for a conversation filled with questions. Why did he choose to so boldly challenge his father? What consequences he anticipated? And whether he truly believed in the stability of such a drastic shift. Yet, instead of critique, Maria offered warmth. I saw you out there. You were incredible. He caught a glimpse of spark in her eyes, a flicker of connection that stoked the embers of his resolve. I just wanted to check in. Your message, it resonated, you know? I didn't anticipate it being this intense, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. That's the price of authenticity, right? Maria leaned against the bench, the warmth of her presence grounding him. But that doesn't mean you have to navigate this alone. Her words hung in the air like a gentle challenge. Hadn't he just declared his independence? Why did the thought of facing this head-on with someone at his side feel more freeing than solitary? I need to think through my strategy. I can't just react. I need to build something that reflects who I am. He shifted in his seat, uncertainty wrestling with his resolve. Felt like standing at a precipice. Jumping into the unknown seemed reckless, but remaining stagnant felt like an affront to everything he had just claimed. Well, she began, eyeing him honestly. It's okay to lean into the discomfort. What's the worst that could happen? The question hung heavy, and Alex couldn't shake the intrusive thoughts surrounding his family and their power. Was he truly prepared for the inevitable backlash from his father? Each potential confrontation spiraled outwards, each conflict promising a divergence he hadn't prepared for. That afternoon, when the sunlight dipped towards a weary horizon, Alex found himself sensing a strange kind of clarity. He had opened a door to self-realization, but it needed careful navigation. As he began to outline his ideas on the backside of a napkin, a tangible representation of his chaotic thoughts, he realized he needed an ally, a collaborator. Not just anyone, but someone who profoundly understood stakes far higher than mere media scrutiny. Let us plan something, he said suddenly, his heart quickening anew. Something that showcases who I am without the noise of my past. I want to create my own narrative, and I can't do it alone. Maria nodded, her interest piqued. What did you have in mind? The moment bristled with possibility, and ideas began to weave into a tapestry of strategies. But a deeper question loomed over their conversation like an ominous cloud. Could he withstand the storm his father would inevitably unleash when he realized Alex was fully committed to tearing down the familiar legacy that shackled him? He could feel the tide turning, but uncertainty wove through his determination. The time had come to forge his own identity, and with every idea articulated, he felt the tremors of impending confrontation with his father simmer beneath the surface. Alex knew the next conversation he had would be more than a simple discussion. It would be a seismic shift in every element of his life. In that restaurant corner, away from prying eyes but on the cusp of everything changed, Alex's focus sharpened. Let's meet more regularly and strategize together. We can create something meaningful, he proposed, his excitement narrowing down into something palpable. As they discussed smaller details of their plan, a sudden realization shocked him. His father's formidable influence might not be as unshakable as he once believed. After all, if he could reclaim his narrative, what would stop him from pushing back against the oppressive weight of family expectations once and for all? A convergence of bravery and dread brewed within him, but a new challenge lurked at the back of his mind: how to stand resilient when the late-night news would break the fallout of his audacity. Tomorrow promised a confrontation he hadn't anticipated, and as that thought rolled through him like thunder, he braced himself for the inevitable. This was just the beginning of a battle that could redefine everything. Would he rise to the occasion, or would he falter before the tempest? The sun cast long shadows as Alex prepared himself for what felt like an inevitable clash. The weight of his father's legacy hung over him like a storm cloud, dark and foreboding. As morning light broke through the horizon, he reflected on the plan he had meticulously crafted with Maria, their ideas solidifying like concrete in his mind. Each word he had committed to that small napkin felt revolutionary, anchoring him against the increasingly turbulent waves of familial expectations and societal judgment. Yet, uncertainty still gnawed at him. What did personal integrity mean when it brushed against the expectations of a powerful family? He couldn't help but ponder if all the bold plans they had laid out would hold when confronted with his father's imposing shadow. The invitation to challenge all he had known about success and legacy was intoxicating, yet terrifying. Alex arrived at the office, determined to set the undertone for the day. The familiar buzz of activity felt different. His colleagues whispered and exchanged sidelong glances, and the flickering tension in the air was palpable. However, nothing could distract him from the pivotal moment ahead, the impending conversation with his father. He settled into his seat, fingers drumming against the polished wood of his desk as he rehearsed what he would say. A part of him wished to project confidence, yet the memories of his father's displeasure loomed ominously. Would he dismiss Alex as just an entitled son lacking insight? Or worse, would he resort to intimidation, leveraging the power he held over Alex's career? The clock ticked relentlessly towards 10 a.m. Alex took a deep breath, focusing on the fire ignited by his recent decision. He would not just be a bystander in the narrative of his life. At the appointed time, he stood, the waver of uncertainty fading as he reminded himself of the resolve he felt with Maria. It wasn't merely a rebellion. It was a declaration of self-worth. Closing the door behind him, Alex entered his father's office, a room that carried the weight of countless board meetings and heavy discussions. It served as an extension of his father's presence, echoing the values of tradition and expectation. His father looked up from behind a sprawling mahogany desk, eyes narrowing as they met Alex's. "A bold move yesterday, son," his father said, coolly assessing, as Alex's heart raced. "I want to talk about that," Alex responded, his voice steady, fighting against the rising tide of anxiety. He took a seat, the chair feeling heavier than it had ever before. "I need you to understand that I am not backing down from my decision. I won't suppress who I am just to maintain our family's image." His father's brow creased with irritation. "You have no idea what you're risking, Alex. The business, our name, it's not just yours. It belongs to generations before you. You can't just throw it away to satisfy a whim." Anger surged at those words. It wasn't a whim. It was his life, his truth. "It's not a whim. This is who I am, and if I'm going to be part of this family and this business, I need to be authentic. Otherwise, what's the point?" He fired back, the conviction in his voice surprising him. For a moment, they locked gazes, a silent battle of wills. His father's face shifted from irritation to something darker. Was it fear? Regret? "Do you really think you can just walk away from everything I've built? Everything we've built?" His voice lowered, dripping with the weight of consequence. "This is a family. It stands together or crumbles apart." "I'm not saying I want to walk away," Alex said, forcing calm into his tone. "But if that family means sacrificing who I am, then what's the point? I want to contribute to something real, adaptive, innovative. Not simply perpetuate what's already there." A silence stretched between them, electric and heavy, each with their own set of expectations crashing down upon them. Alex felt the shift in the atmosphere. His father's power still loomed large, but Alex stood more steadfast than he had ever felt before. "Are you prepared for the consequences?" his father finally asked, voice strict yet laden with an unusual vulnerability. "Things are going to change." "Yes." The word escaped his lips almost instinctively. It was true. The world he stood on was unstable, yet Alex craved change like a dying man wanted water. "You might find that people won't support you the way you think they will," his father countered, eyes flashing. "This is going to be a lonely battle." Alex swallowed hard, That statement embedded teeth into his resolve. But the thought of isolation sparked a flicker of fear. What if this solitude was a fate he couldn't endure? Loneliness is often the price of authenticity. I assent it? He retorted, surprising even himself with the strength behind his conviction. But maybe that's a price I'm willing to pay. I need to find out where I fit in all of this. His father opened his mouth as if to object, but words failed him. The growing divide between them became an unspoken testament to an undeniable shift and evolution within Alex that he could no longer ignore, nor could his father control. In that moment, Alex realized that the confrontation had surfaced an unforeseen truth. He might have the power to reshape the legacy, but he would pay a price for that power. As the conversation sank into the quiet of the office, an unsettling resolve crystallized within him. It was only a beginning. Much like rain before a storm, nature's chaotic beauty threatening to uproot everything he had ever known. As the door closed behind him, the tension settled in his bones. In reclaiming who he was, Alex just might be threatened by something more profound than his father. It could be the entire structure of his life before today. And suddenly, the stakes felt higher than ever. Would he find allies in this quest for authenticity? Or was he destined to take on the world alone? Alex stepped out of his father's office, the air thick with unspoken words and tension that danced in the silence of the corridor. The encounter felt like a punctured balloon, the air rushing out, leaving him both light and burdened. He had taken a stand, a bold, reckless stand, but it felt refreshing, like the first gust of wind after a stifling summer heat. Yet doubt slinked back in. Would his audacity diminish the very connections he sought to strengthen? He leaned against the cool wall, seeking clarity. He knew he would need to gather his thoughts, and before he sank deeper into this spiral, there was one person to whom he could turn: Maria. The moment he stepped into the cafe just a few blocks from the office, the familiar aroma of freshly brewed coffee instantly wrapped around him like a comforting embrace. Noise and chatter buzzed around, but within those walls, Alex sought solace. He spotted Maria perched at a small table by the window, her vibrant laughter catching his attention. Her enthusiasm for life reminded him of the possibilities stretching out before him. "Hey," she greeted, her smile brightening the room as he settled across from her. "I was beginning to think you'd gotten lost in that corporate jungle. More like got stuck in a lion's den," he replied dryly, running a hand through his hair, still fidgeting from the tension of moments ago. "What happened?" Maria leaned forward, a keen interest alive in her eyes. With an exhale, Alex recounted his confrontation with his father, the challenge he had laid down, and the vow he had made to himself. The more he spoke, the clearer his resolve became. He could feel Maria's energy fueling him. "That's amazing," she exclaimed, eyes sparkling. "But it's going to be tough. Have you thought about your strategy moving forward?" Alex's heart sank slightly. Strategy? The word felt too calculated, too clinical for what he felt inside. He had revolted against the very idea of the bloodless corporate maneuvering that had pervaded his family. Yet he needed a plan. He relinquished a sigh. "Not really. I jumped in without a full dive plan." Maria studied him before responding. "You know the saying, fail to plan, plan to fail. If you're going to go against your father, you need allies. You can't do this alone." The weight of her words pressed on him. Allies? Would anyone stand by him? Would his colleagues rally for change, or would they back away, leaving him to fight in solitude? He thought of the whispers at the office, the uncertain eyes that had looked towards him, some critiquing, others curious. What about the marketing department? Maria suggested, her brows lifting. "You mentioned that some of them seemed captivated by your ideas. What if you shared the vision with them? Maybe they'd be up for a revolution of their own?" Picturing it ignited a pulse of excitement within him. Could it be possible to plant seeds of change beyond his initial circle? "You're right," he said, straightening. "If they see what's at stake, if they recognize the value of reinventing ourselves," Maria interrupted, "then they might follow you not just as a colleague but as a movement." Movement. The thought washed over him, flooding him with a heady sense of purpose. Maybe he wouldn't be a lone ranger after all. But before they could delve deeper, The cafe door swung open, and a familiar figure blurred into view. Ava, from the upper management team, swept in with a group of others trailing behind her. Their laughter cut through the ambience, each noise a reminder of the status quo. Alex's stomach tightened as Ava and her friends settled 2 tables down, their animated conversation splitting the air. He and Maria fell silent, instinctively leaning back to observe. Each quip inevitably pointed at the risk he had just taken, each rise in laughter a poking jab at the very ideas Alex held dear. "How do I make them see?" he muttered, frustration simmering beneath the surface. "I think you have to show them," Maria urged. "Lead by example. They'll never support you until they see what change looks like." His gaze darted back to Ava, now laughing comfortably through the walls of privilege, never suspecting the storm brewing within him. But the next thrilling thought gripped him. Beyond the laughter, could he weave a tapestry of innovation that would capture not just supporters but genuine advocates? Feeling a fierce determination rise within him, Alex's decision crystallized. He would not only voice the change but would become the embodiment of it. It was time to prepare a presentation and invitation for the marketing team to step into a future he envisioned. Yet with this resolve came uncertainty. Would he find the courage to face Ava and the others? Could he handle their skepticism and mockery, the very voices he feared? As his heart raced, excitement mingled with dread. The time had come to leap into action. The question remained, would the leap strengthen his resolve or shatter his spirit? Steeling himself, he turned to Maria, his eyes reflecting newfound resolve. "I need your help. We're going to turn this around, and I need you by my side." A small grin broke upon her face. "Let us do this." But as they left the cafe, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the imminent wave of support might not come easily. What if he only stirred the waters of complacency, leading instead to unforeseen consequences? As thoughts swirled in his mind, he faced an unnerving yet exhilarating horizon. The sun hung low in the sky as Alex walked back to his office, a weight on his shoulders that felt heavier than any he'd ever carried. Thoughts of the marketing team flooded his mind. Imagining their reaction to his vision brought both excitement and anxiety. He had made it clear to his father that he wasn't going to accept the status quo. But making that vision a reality seemed like an uphill battle. "Where do I even start?" he muttered to himself as he navigated through a throng of busy professionals in the lobby. He did his best to ignore the quiet judgments reflected in their glances, his earlier courage now feeling a little less sturdy. Was he truly prepared to challenge the very framework his family's legacy had built? In his office, Alex set his briefcase down with determination. He took a deep breath, allowing the stillness of his workspace to bring a moment of clarity. He turned to the whiteboard in the corner, its surface peppered with notes and ideas from past projects. Inspiration surged as he began jotting down thoughts, a mind map of sorts, linking the concepts of innovation and creativity to the dull processes that bogged down his company. "People need to see the value," he said aloud, pacing the floor as though rehearsing. "They need to feel it. This isn't just about new ideas. It's about their futures, too." Ramping up his energy, Alex felt resolve building within him. He recalled Maria's encouragement and the notion of leading by example. As much as he worried about the reactions of the upper management and what Ava might say, he couldn't afford to allow that fear to eclipse his ambitions. It was time to act. He decided to host an informal brainstorming session with the marketing team. It would be a space for free thought, unmonitored by the weight of upper management. Alex envisioned an environment where creativity could flow without judgment. Would it lead to the change he was seeking? The plan began to materialize, and for the first time, the vague outlines of his presentation took form. He drafted an agenda that would crush the silence of complacency, stirring the team into a passionate discussion about not just the department's goals, but the company's future as a whole. Each word came alive on the page, reflecting his newfound conviction. But then a veil of doubt hovered again. Would the team embrace him as a leader, or would they view him as just another privileged son trying to play at being innovative? He could already imagine the skepticism etched on their faces, the ones who had always been overshadowed by the upper echelon of the organization. Would they trust him enough to admit their frustrations over the current system? A knock on the door jolted him from his thoughts. It was one of his colleagues from marketing, Noah. His friendly demeanor was a refreshing contrast to the seriousness of the day. "Hey, Alex, you've been a ghost around here. Want to join us for lunch? Actually, I was thinking of getting the marketing team together for something a bit different," Alex replied, gauging Noah's interest. "What do you have in mind?" Noah asked, curiosity sparking in his eyes. With a rush of excitement, Alex pitched the concept for the brainstorming session, anticipating Noah's response. As he watched the enthusiasm light up Noah's expression, a swell of hope filled him. "Count me in. We could actually use some fresh ideas," Noah exclaimed. This little spark ignited something within Alex. If they could feel that energy together, it might just catch on. After further conversations with colleagues, it became clear that there was an underlying eagerness among them, buried beneath layers of routine and monotony. Each shared sentiment fueled his resolve. As the week rolled on, Alex solidified plans for the gathering. He crafted a vision statement that stabbed at the heart of the existing frustrations, their potential for creative freedom wrapped into enticing possibilities. But as the day approached, the nagging voice of doubt returned. Would Ava and her crew attempt to intervene? Would they dismiss his efforts as hobbyist antics, belittling him in front of everyone he aimed to inspire? Now, standing on the precipice of his ambitions, Alex felt the exhilarating, paralyzing grip of uncertainty. He had taken the first step in organizing the meeting, but now the specter of pushback loomed ever larger. He needed to brace for the inevitable confrontation, one that would test not only his resolve but his very willingness to lead. With a final look at the notes sprawling across his desk and determination lighting his spirit, Alex knew he had no choice. It was time to confront the tide of mediocrity. "The time has come to face them," he whispered, feeling the electrifying rush of anticipation rippling through him. But with exhilaration came fear. Would his efforts be in vain? Would the voice of rebellion echo through the gilded halls of complacency or be drowned out by ironclad criticism? As he prepared for the event, whispers of doubt shaded his thoughts alongside flickers of determination. And Alex realized that the journey toward redefining his identity was more turbulent than he had anticipated. The stakes were higher than he could have imagined, and his next move would either catalyze transformation or lock him away in an ever-tightening cocoon of expectation. Would he rise to the occasion, or would he falter at the moment that shaped his legacy? The morning of the brainstorming session arrived, piercing Alex with a sense of urgency that stirred in his stomach. Each tick of the clock echoed the mounting pressure that accompanied his every thought. He pinned a fresh agenda on the whiteboard, the bold letters proclaiming, "Innovate to elevate," staring back at him like a challenge. The unsettling tightness in his chest resurfaced as he replayed the scenarios of potential disaster in his mind, a flicker of confidence now blurred by fear. "Keep it simple," he muttered, forcing himself to breathe deeply as he compared the notes he'd gathered. They highlighted the key objectives of the meeting: encouraging open dialogue, identifying existing pain points, and fostering a culture of creativity that had long been stifled. What felt daunting was the act of stepping into the role of leader in an environment littered with invisible barriers. The marketing team filed into the room, the sound of chairs scraping against the floor resonating like an alarm. Some faces lit with curiosity, others remained skeptical. As he surveyed the collective expressions, Alex couldn't shake the notion that they were all waiting for someone, anyone, to affirm their frustrations. They were trapped, each one tethered to the same expectations Alex had just begun to openly question. "Thanks for coming, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time," he began, his voice steady despite the uncertainty that flickered beneath the surface. "Today, we're diving into how we can transform our approach and reignite our passion for what we do." The room fell into an apprehensive silence, punctuated only by the sound of a pen tapping against the table. Alex pushed on, sharing the vision he had meticulously crafted, showcasing the possibilities that lay just beyond their complacency. As he spoke, he could see the initial flickers of interest emerging. However, He was also acutely aware of the looming shadow of dissent behind the confident facade he attempted to present. Then came Ava, the head of the senior marketing team, a force known for her cutting remarks cloaked in corporate diplomacy. Alex, this sounds lofty. The reality is we've got quotas to meet and a budget to harness. Are we really prepared to forego established protocols? A cold wave washed over him, but Alex stood firm. I believe we can rethink protocols to fit our vision, he countered, refusing to retreat into self-doubt. Innovation should not be an exception. It should be our standard. Let us not confuse structure with rigidity. That statement hung in the air, met with hesitant nods and quiet murmurs. Had he struck a nerve? His heart pounded. He had to build upon this momentum, weaving together their frustrations like threads to form a resilient fabric of change. A spirited colleague, Sam, spoke up. Honestly, it's refreshing to visualize what could be. But how do we balance that with the pressures we're under? By creating a dialogue, Alex responded, encouraged by the opening. I need your experiences, your suggestions. We have to work together to redefine our constraints. And amidst the growing exchange of ideas, Alex found unexpected clarity within the questions and enthusiasm swirling around him. Every contribution chipped away at the wall he had braced himself against. They wanted change, they were craving it. Yet, as debates ignited and viewpoints clashed, he realized how much his vision needed grounding in the very feedback he sought. However, with this burgeoning energy came the arduous task of navigating differences of opinion. Ava's disapproving brows drew thoughts of potential conflict and sabotage. Each glance a reminder of the leadership circle he teetered on the edge of challenging. Would they let those walls stand firm? As the session continued, gaining steam and fervor, Alex felt himself caught between his aspirations and the paradox of being both a facilitator and a son of the company's legacy. An intoxicating rush swirled around him, a mixture of anticipation and fear. Could he be the disruptor the company needed or just another voice? Lost in the echo chamber? The clock's hands moved forward, steering them deeper into their lively debate. Alex's convictions solidified with each moment, his passion stirring between what he wished to create and the risks involved. Attention hung thick. Would they rally together behind his vision, or would dissent tear apart the fragile bonds of hope he had built? As the meeting meandered towards a close, a sudden knock at the door caught his attention mid-sentence. The interruption came not only as a disturbance but as an impending storm. Alex's gut twisted, each heartbeat thrumming in sync with the growing uncertainty of who or what would step into this pivotal moment, and if their declaration of transformation would soon be overshadowed by an undeniable confrontation. What must he ready himself to face next? The door swung open, revealing Ava, her steady demeanor cloaked in an air of authority that was hard to ignore. She surveyed the room, a slight smirk playing on her lips, before fixing her gaze on Alex. The atmosphere shifted palpably, tension crackling in the air like static. Mind if I join? She asked, her tone laced with feigned congeniality. Of course, Alex replied, masking the apprehension that bubbled beneath his surface. As she took a seat, the dynamics in the room changed. The enthusiasm the team had experienced began to deflate under her watchful eye, replaced by a wary quiet. But Alex had opened the floodgates. The discussions had started, and he wouldn't let them be easily shut down. Alex, I admire your passion for this project, but I question our capacity to embrace such drastic change. Ava interjected, her voice cool but threaded with intent. Not every suggestion lends itself to practicality. We've worked hard to maintain a level of professionalism. Yet, instead of retreating, Alex felt his resolve ignite. That's precisely why we need to invite change. Ava, our professionalism shouldn't be a crutch that limits our creativity and progress. There's potential here, he insisted, gesturing toward his colleagues who had started to lean in again, their faces reflecting the same anticipation he felt. But do you honestly believe we can just reshuffle everything overnight? She pressed, her gaze piercing into him. Not overnight, but we can begin to dismantle the rigidity that constrains our growth. Alex shot back, his confidence buoyed by the nods of agreement from his team. They were with him, and that realization brought a surge of clarity. If we never challenge our norms, we risk stagnation. Our business model is evolving. Shouldn't we embrace that evolution? The murmurs of support amongst the team grew louder. Alex pressed on. I'm not saying we eliminate structure. I'm saying we create a culture that fosters innovation. Each of you has ideas that deserve attention. In response, a spark ignited within the group. Ideas flowed freely, bouncing off the walls like fireworks against a night sky. Alex deftly facilitated the discussion, weaving the paths of collective experiences with his vision. He wasn't merely fighting for change. He was leading a movement. As they spoke animatedly, Ava remained quiet, her presence a distraction he couldn't ignore. Despite her skepticism, there was something different in the atmosphere. The team was rising to the occasion, ready to advocate not just for their ambitions, but for Alex's vision. I'm not set against change, she said, a hint of grudging acknowledgement slipping into her tone. But I think we have to tread carefully. The last thing we want is upheaval that unfurls without proper planning. Planning without creativity is a blueprint for failure, Alex countered, determined. Just look at how resistant we've become. Our clients crave novel approaches, imaginative content. It's time we become the pioneers rather than the followers. And at that moment, the spark turned into a flame, a collective aspiration igniting hope across the room. Ava, though caught in a position of authority, began to shift, her body language reflecting a readiness to engage rather than contest. Perhaps the conversation was finally tugging at her facade. As voices rose and ideas clashed, a small but confident voice from within the group chimed in. Why don't we take a week to draft some proposals together? We can showcase different perspectives on how fresh ideas can revive our strategies. Alex's heart soared at the suggestion. It was collaborative, inclusive, and exactly what he wanted. Yes, let us champion this together, he exclaimed, enthusiasm electrifying the air. We can hold a follow-up meeting and gauge the reactions from upper management. Ava shifted in her seat, a mix of resignation and concession on her face. This was a battle still in motion, but Alex could feel the tide turning, and that reflected a quiet strength in him. He was no longer merely fighting a battle against his father's expectations, but reshaping a culture. Let us call it reimagined marketing, Alex suggested, excitement rippling through the room. With each session, we can empower ourselves to not just gain our voice but to carve out a niche that is authentically ours. And as nods and murmurs of agreement rippled through the team, Alex felt a surge of communion. A new family forged upon common ideals rather than status. He was fostering risk-takers, thinkers, and creators who were ready to join him on this journey toward authenticity. You need to stay in the loop with this, Ava conceded, her voice softening as she waved away her previously dismissive attitude. I can support if you remain realistic. Alex couldn't help the slight grin that crested his lips. Realistic growth is still growth, Ava. As the meeting wound down, a vibrant energy infused the air, electric with possibilities. They collectively united around a vision that felt free from the weight of past expectations. Alex recognized that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but armed with this newfound support, he finally felt equipped to navigate it triumphantly. In the days that followed, he continued to build rapport with his colleagues and form teams dedicated to various aspects of the vision he sought to create. Each opportunity brought forth the promise of reinvention. And as the first round of presentations approached, Alex felt a transformation taking root within him. He was not only carrying the weight of his father's legacy on his shoulders, he was reshaping that legacy, infusing it with authenticity and allowing room for new ideas to thrive. Each presentation brought recognition to the collective effort they invested in aligning creativity with measurable impact. Ideas once buried beneath layers of expectation began to emerge, and Alex felt the connection between himself and his colleagues deepen further. Finally, the day arrived for the team to present their findings to upper management. As they gathered outside the boardroom, Alex felt a whirl of anticipation, but beneath it lay a solid current of confidence. He remembered Maria's words. It's okay to lean into discomfort. As they shuffled into the conference room, Alex spoke with clarity and passion. detailing the vision that belonged not only to him, but to everyone who had chosen to join him on this path of authenticity. I surveyed them, skepticism still fresh. But as Alex spoke, he noticed the twinkle of interest lighting in some of the older executives' eyes. Even Ava seemed intrigued, her posture quelling the unease of their earlier confrontations. The winds of change were palpable. Over the course of the presentation, corners of mouths turned upwards, and slight nods punctuated understanding. The genuine reactions fueled Alex, freeing him from lingering fears. Recognition began to form not only within the team's trust. This would pave the way for revolutionizing a legacy. As the presentation concluded, applause erupted from the team, but it reflected so much more than appreciation. They were symbolizing unity. They had come together at the intersection of rebellion and creativity. And so, with every ripple of excitement, Alex experienced the weight of his choices dissolving. He understood this was only the beginning, one chapter amongst many, where he continued to confront the tides of expectations and set out his course toward autonomy. Leaving the boardroom, Alex's mind fired with clarity and resolve. He was no longer a mere shadow of succession. He had commandeered his own narrative, and alongside his team, he had begun to carve out a legacy of authenticity, one fueled by passion and purpose. In the days that followed, personal triumph melded with professional recognition. Colleagues rallied around the newfound vision. Threads of creativity were woven into fabric of the corporate structure, and the specter of isolation now felt an ocean away. As the sun dipped behind the skyline, he stood on his office balcony gazing out at the sprawling city. The vibrant hum of New York transformed into a symphony of hopes and dreams, a world liberated from expectations, where every individual could dare to carve their own legacy, just as he had. He turned and smiled at Maria, who joined him on the balcony, her presence grounding yet inspiring. In that moment of clarity and satisfaction, Alex knew he had achieved something profound. He hadn't merely confronted his father's world. He had proven that authenticity resided not just within himself, but could radiate through a collective dream. As he basked in the warmth of the setting sun, a sense of fulfillment enveloped him. Alex Caldwell had stepped into his true self, armed with both courage and passion, prepared, finally, to lead where others had feared to tread. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.